So the NVIDIA app just got a brand new update. A built-in AI assistant called Jass Assist while playing any game. If you press Alt-G, you can literally type or talk to it in real time. Boost my FPS. Okay? That's not a bad response, ask it anything. GPU. Related. And it will try to help you with the keyword being try. Because it does definitely make mistakes, eh? Why does it tell me about the NVIDIA app? So in this video, I wanted to go ahead and test it out, asking it a range of different questions from very simple basic ones to more advanced ones, just to see what sort of responses we get from this experimental AI assistant. Will it be the next big thing that changes things forever? Or will it be like C, where everyone just uninstalls it? Let's go ahead and find out. Starting off, I wanted to ask it some FPS-related questions to see if it could boost my FPS in-game, so as you do, I began with asking it to improve my FPS in Fortnite. Abruptly, it told me that my Fortnite has been optimized. Successfully, but how exactly did it do that? So I check my in-game settings to see if these have been changed in any way. You'll notice that I did have a lot of them, like the textures on high, to see if it would actually automatically turn these down. But it did not touch these, as you can see. So after that, I decided to check the NVIDIA app where, yes, it did just optimize the settings inside of this. Now, looking at these settings, for some stuff it has changed, it would give you an FPS boost. Like turning graphical intensive settings off, such as effects, post-processing reflections, shadows off textures to low and view distance to near. But the thing is, this isn't perfect because it's put the DLSS in instead of being off, and NVIDIA. DLSS, which I know it's NVIDIA's technology, but in my experience, I don't like this at all because it makes my game blurry. I also feel that it does affect my latency negatively, but to sort of redeem themselves, they have enabled the reflex setting, which I do like. Enabling DLSS, though, isn't ideal, and it makes this optimization bad in my opinion. You're far better just customizing it yourself after being dissatisfied with its suggestion. I tried to change it up slightly by asking it something more GPU-related, basically asking it to boost my GPU's performance. And although the suggestion was good, the amount it wanted to overclock it by wasn't that great. I was originally expecting it to match the megahertz that it did in the auto-clocking software. It was around 165 megahertz. It didn't, it gave me 45 megahertz. So even though NVIDIA keeps it very, very safe in the auto overclocking software, where they claim that overclock will not void any warranty or break any sort of hardware when it comes to overclocking through Jass Assist, they really do play it safe. Next up, before asking it any related question, I wanted to try selector in one of the default options to see what it would say. It did end up telling me a bunch of information, but it did seem very basic. However, it is still convenient. It definitely would have been better if it showed more than 4 components like you'd see in Windows and other applications. I then scrolled down further where it showed display information along with performance telemetry. I did not expect to see the CPU usage in there too, and then at the bottom, it showed the GPU settings, which it seems for these settings in particular, if you ask it, you can enable them or disable them. I believe it then stated some more information at the bottom that I'm not interested in. Next up, for the latency question, I literally just wrote low latency. Yes, I could have wrote low my latency or low my system latency. I just didn't want to confuse it, and annoyingly, it said this where it was asking me to specify my game or application after literally stating my entire system specs and what game I'm in just a few minutes ago. From that point, it annoyed me. So I literally just wrote latency, and after having a little think, it came back with something interesting. It recommended that I use reflex, which at the time in my in-game settings was disabled. So that at the very minimum is pretty cool how I can detect that it's not enabled. And it then recommended me to enable it. I just wish it had the capabilities to automatically turn this on in the game settings. That would be really cool. While on the latency topic, I wanted to write diagnose system latency to see what it would say. And it came back with a couple of things. Number one, it couldn't tell me my PC latency, which was disappointing. And number two, it did now confirm that I am using NVIDIA Reflex. It just would have been nice if it could read my PC latency so I could benchmark before and after with Reflex. I then decided to ask it if it knew my GPU temp, and it did, which was really cool. I asked it if it could chart my FPS, and it brought up one of them interactive charts again. Moving on, I wanted to ask it about NVIDIA's drivers, so I asked it to check if there's any updates. This would be useful if, like me, you weren't already on the latest driver as I needed to be, to even get the Jass Assist to work next from that. I thought I'd be cheeky and asked it if it knew what was new with the latest drivers. As if you didn't know, in the NVIDIA app, it has this information stated, so I wondered if it would refer back to that. And sadly it didn't. And again, another thing I shouldn't have tried as I was already on the latest. One, I asked it to download the latest drivers, which I believe it would have, if it could have moving on. Yet again. I decided to ask it some random questions, so a lot of these questions were about video control panel to see if it could explain any setting I was curious or wondering about. It did end up explaining what each setting was. Pretty well. However, to make this better, they should add a visual to help people understand it further. As you can see though, I asked it a few more questions, and it did do surprisingly well on this. I can't lie, it even answered this comparison question, which I didn't think it would. I then got really bored of talking to it and started asking it some weird questions about Fortnite, like how do I build? These answers were pretty crap. To be honest, you can tell that it only specializes in NVIDIA stuff, GPU stuff, but it was able to tell me about the score and its stats. So yeah, that was the brand new AI assistant from NVIDIA called Jass Assist, in my opinion, at its current release in experimental. By the way, I don't think it is that great, but at the same time it does have massive potential. Just think about it while you're in game. You can press 2 buttons and ask it any question in real time. You can't deny that is pretty good assistance. It's just in its stage right now. It seems pretty buggy. You don't know if the information is fully accurate, and yeah, it just feels like one of those things that will get way better with time. Until then though, if you do want to boost your FPS and lower your system latency, I recommend you go into your NVIDIA app under the global settings and just optimize these yourself. RTX uses AI technology to make the game's colors look richer, brighter, and cleaner, which does look nice, but performance-wise, you definitely want this off CUDA GPUs. This basically allows you to select one or more GPUs, just leave it default, unless you do have multiple GPUs. DSR factors. This allows you to render a game at a higher resolution than your monitor's native resolution, and then downscale the image to your monitor's resolution. I keep this off as with the better sharpness usually comes a dip in performance. Low latency mode, this removes the rendering queue between the CPU and GPU, which basically removes one latency step from your mouse clicking to it reaching your display, resulting in virtual-ass system latency. I definitely recommend using this setting, but which one is up to you, and you have to test it for yourselves. I've found for myself on is the best one, image scaling. This basically outputs an upscale sharpened image of a lower resolution. It can give you a performance boost, but I've found that upscaling decreases latency by raising your frame rate, so you definitely don't want to use this in competitive games. Max frame rate, this option allows you to cap your FPS, which you don't want to do. Monitor technology, if you see this setting, you've got NVIDIA G-Sync. This is personal preference, and to set it up properly, I recommend you check out Blur Busters. Power management mode. This lets you choose between power and performance on your graphics card. I recommend you either keep this on the default normal, or alternatively, you can check out my Windows settings video, where I explain how to set up the ultimate power plan, which is better than both of these settings, right? Here, shader cache size, this stores any shaders. The game has to compile them in real time for later. Usually the larger the shader cache, the less likely you are to regenerate a specific shader. However, these days I recommend just using the default one. It's not too high where it's going to waste disk space, and it's not too low where you're going to get stutters texture filtering. I just keep this on the default allow. Same with vertical sync and virtual reality. If this helped out, feel free to drop a like and subscribe, and before you do, go check out any of my other videos on screen right now.